Well, it's council preview time. I'm Tom Loucks, and we're in a different place. We're doing this by Zoom, as everybody's pretty much used to nowadays. So thanks for joining me, Steve Barg.
Yeah, good to be here. I might as well say it. I have had an exposure, so I can't be in person with you. I'm kind of holed up in a place where I can be, and we're all dealing with COVID, so life marches on.
That is correct. All right. Well, I'm coming from the studio here across on 5th floor in our virtual set, which I would have been using with Steve next to me, but this works just fine. If there's some noise, there's construction going on above me, so I'll try to mute it when I'm not talking, if that happens. Well, let's get right into it. This is Tuesday's council meeting, January 15th, the second one of the month. It's actually kind of feels a little bit early, but that's how the month works. Let's get right into it, Steve. Let's talk about that special council meeting first. That's going to take place at 5 o'clock on Tuesday.
Yeah, Tom, I think we touched on it the last time we were together, but it's more imminent now, and it's worth delving into farther. Back in July of last year, Dan Kinneck, our Public Works Director, brought forth to the Board of Public Works and then ultimately to Council to have a consultant brought on board for the purpose of looking at a shared site between the city and the county. It's on a property of about 17 acres down on South Galvin Avenue. The city obviously interested in moving the garage out of downtown to a new location. You really normally don't find city garages, street equipment and so on in your downtown. And the county is looking to really make a nice highway facility out there for the county highway crew. So there's a possibility to work together. And the consultant, Barrientos from Milwaukee, has been looking at 3 options, different levels of integration. One, which the two would be on the same site, but they'd be kind of married but separate, for lack of a better phrase. And then 2 others where there'd be more integration, where they would share a building, and perhaps in the third and most significant level of integration, be more tightly bound together in that facility in terms of what they share and how it all works. So he's going to walk through the 3 opportunities, the pros and cons of every one of them, the cost, the price tag, which I know the council will be interested in hearing. You always want to know what the expense would be if you went down those roads. He'll have that as well. And then there'll be an opportunity for both the city council members and the county highway officials who'll be there from Wood County to ask questions, to delve into it a little bit more. We booked from 5 o'clock to 6 o'clock. The intent is at 6 o'clock we go to the regular council meeting, but if it goes a couple minutes longer, it does. We'll start the council meeting when we're able to.
All right, 5 p.m. We'll be broadcasting that as well. If our viewers here are watching and want to watch what happens again, this is just information only, as you said, right, Steve? And no decisions will be made at this meeting.
Correct. There'll be no decisions, no action taken whatsoever. However, you'll get a sense of whether or not what the consultant proposes or throws out there is of interest to the 2 parties, and that will determine if there's more work done to study it further.
All right. Well, this wouldn't happen even if it was to go forward tomorrow. It takes some time to do this. It'd be several years out, even if something was just to happen because of the amount of space and what needs to be done, I'm assuming. But we'll hear about it from our consultant.
Yeah, this is one of those things, Tom, where you're looking quite a few years out, but you have to plan. There'd be a pretty big expense for doing this, and there'd be a lot to think about with the land left behind. That would leave a large space in the northwest part of our downtown that I think the city would want to be able to tell its taxpayers what the alternatives are to make good use of that property. So there'd have to be a lot of work, but if it's favorable, if people like the idea, and if the price seems reasonable, you'll probably see some work starting more in earnest as we go along in 2022 to try and plan things out.
All right. I believe you wanted to go into staff updates, and I think we could go right into that. I don't believe we did this last time at our council meeting. Sorry about that noise, but we got to deal with it. Fire Chief Scott Owen, is that correct?
Yeah, it is. I know that we've given Scott a nice send off. He actually retired at the end of the year, but we want to have him back and present him with a plaque and honor him again as a retired fire chief. And what a great job he did for 25 years. Not all of that was as a chief, but that was his time in the department. So he'll get a recognition plaque and a nice round of applause and some thanks from the council and staff in attendance for all the work he did on the fire department and specifically those years as fire chief. Should I go on? Yeah,
I'm toggling back and forth, Steve. Sorry about that, just to keep the noise down.
Well, that's fine. That's fine.
Go ahead and talk about the other two as well, please.
Yeah, we have new firefighters coming on board. Alexis Strahan, I hope I got her name right, and Jenna Madsen. These two women will be joining the fire department, and we're glad to have them be part of the fire and rescue team here in Marshfield. Want to introduce them. So Acting Fire Chief Pete Fletty will do the honors. And then we have the introduction by Justin Casperson of two people who the council knows, I think, to some degree. One is Nikki Anderson, who we intended to introduce her last week, but there was a little bit of wires crossed between myself and the Parks and Recreation Director. But Justin will introduce Nikki, who is, as of the first of the year, is now a city employee. She's the event and programming coordinator. Her job is still largely what it always has been, even when she wasn't a city employee, which is working with Wenzel Family Plaza, trying to get concerts and events and activities down there to bring interest and bring people down to use that beautiful amenity. And then the other person is, I lost my place here, Sarah Strohan. And again, I apologize if I mispronounce her name. I think it's actually Storant. Sarah has been, working for the zoo for quite a number of years, but she'll be promoted now to zoo manager, replacing Steve Burns, who moved on after 10 years in that job. Excited to have Sarah. I've heard great things about her as well. And so Justin will be introducing both of those individuals in person to the council and to viewers on Tuesday night.
All right. A lot of new people coming aboard, and a good chance to welcome them and put some faces to those new people. All right, let's get right into consent agenda here, Steve. And I'm going to talk a bit louder. And let's just go right into Board of Public Works that happened on Monday of this week.
Yeah, well, the city, it's not a very glamorous thing. We don't talk about it a lot, Tom, but the city does its road projects, and we collect asphalt and concrete from those projects. And we store them down at a facility at 25th and Vine on the south end of town. Well, in order to be able to reuse them the way we do, and for future projects, we need them to be ground up, for lack of a better term. They're crushed and stockpiled for us to be able to use on future projects. And we don't do that ourselves. Our street crew doesn't have the equipment for that kind of work. So we contract that out every year. And we got 4 bids this year from companies in the area, one from Loyal, one from Arpin, one from Thorpe, and one from Weston. And the low bid that we're taking is from Booger Trucking Incorporated of Loyal. And again, I apologize if I have the pronunciation wrong, but their bid was $51,500, well within the $82,000 that was budgeted for this. So we'll look forward to working with them. They'll, as I said, be crushing and stockpiling our used concrete and asphalt for reuse. And I want the public to know this, Tom, that we do everything we can to minimize the cost of road projects. And if you can crush and reuse that kind of material on future streets, that's good for everyone. That holds down the cost, and it allows us to do some of the asphalt mill and overlay and other work that we do every year.
Just to clarify, Steve, so that when you crush, that is our material, right? We don't have to buy material to be crushed. It's from our own roads. Is that?
That's what's come out of our own road projects, and we've saved it for crushing and reuse, and that is correct. We're not buying it from anyone.
All right. Oh, we got a big project coming up. It's going to start early spring, 17th Street. I believe we need bids on that project. Is that correct?
Yeah, we do, for the asphalt paving part. And Tom Turchie brought this forward to the Board of Public Works the other night, along with a full schedule that was in the agenda packet, and people can see that as well, certainly by going to our website and taking a look at that in the agenda packet. But we want to go out for bids for the paving part of that, and we are hoping that the council will give a blessing on that as well. The bids under this new plan, or under the timetable, would be received and opened on Wednesday, March 9th. And then the low responsible bidder would be brought forward for approval at the Board of Public Works meeting on March 14th, and then subsequently to the council for final approval on Tuesday, March 22nd. And Tom, we are very excited about this project. We've talked about it for years. You and I have been talking about it a lot lately, doing a full reconstruction of the street, East 17th Avenue, an important street between Maple and Peach, and it goes over into that area by the fairgrounds. And I think we've talked in recent weeks about how We've actually kind of incorporated some work on the fairgrounds property as part of the project, and of course they'll be paying for that. But it'll make the whole project really kind of seamless, and it'll really work well. The biggest concern we have right now, quite frankly, Tom, is that there's a lot of inflation these days. Prices are going up when you go to the grocery store, when you go to the gas station. Well, they're going up on these kind of projects too. Concrete and asphalt and working with contractors. So we're very hopeful to get as many bids as we can and good bids to keep that project within budget. And I guess we'll see. This might be the first test of what we get. Since the inflation rate has kind of gone up a bit.
All right, so once we pick a bid, that is hopefully that will be locked in no matter if prices change after that bid was proposed. Is that correct?
That is correct. Unless something happens where they need to ask for what's called a change order because they find things in the field that are not what they expected and they have to do some other work. But as far as the prices, we ought to be locked in on those. And I should add, Tom, that the expected project, the construction, to take 4 months. The estimated completion date would be August 19th. Now that's important because again, the fair starts the next week. So there'll be a lot of, if you see the progress falling behind, there'll be a lot of effort with the contractor to put in extra hours if need be or whatever, do the work that they have to get done so that the street is done prior to the 2022 Central Wisconsin State Fair.
All right, well, that's probably a big piece of the bid that they're aware of it before they bid on it, that this is basically must be done by this time. I guess we can't control weather, but
No,
that's really going to be an important part. And I think it's going to be nice looking over there for the fair, all the participants, and then they have more than just a fair going over there. So
yeah,
good.
If this all comes together the way it's planned, Tom, it'll be a really sharp appearance for that area of 17th by the fairgrounds, and that'll be a nice way to kick off the fair. But yeah, 17th and 14th are important, along with Peach over there. So we definitely want to have it all as good as we can when the fair kicks off.
Okay, let's move down to finance meeting. We both were there last night, which was Tuesday, the 18th of January. We've got a few positions that we need to fill. One, well, they're both very important, but one, our HR director position needs to be filled.
Yeah, Jennifer Raku, our HR director, turned in her resignation a couple of weeks ago. Her last working day will be February 18th, so about a month from when we're taping this. Jen has done a wonderful job. I know you've interacted with her too, and really a true professional. She came to us from the hospital, and we wish her all the best. She's been here for 6 years and has accomplished quite a bit for us. Really made a difference in terms of our human resources function. But Jen is moving on, and we are looking to fill that position. The committee was favorable to posting it, and we'll look for the council's blessing as well. But it's kind of hard to imagine that you wouldn't have an HR director in the current environment. HR has become more and more complicated with each passing year. You think about the Affordable Care Act, you think about COVID, you think about all the different mandates and rules and laws that come from the federal and state government that dictate how you interact with employees, deal with benefits that you can offer. And it's a critical position. So we're hopeful that we'll be able to get this position filled by later in April. And, that would be about a 3-month period. That would mean going, 60 days or so without an HR director, but, we'll get through. We'll move the process along as quickly as we can. Maybe we'll have somebody on board before late April. But we want to put a lot of thought and effort into it and get the best possible replacement for Jennifer that we can.
All right, Steve, you had gone through this in your career here at the city. Is that, I believe, with hiring Jen? What was the process back then? Was it difficult? I'm just curious about, maybe somebody would like to know that.
Yeah, we put a lot of thought and effort into it. You'll see as part of the process that we have involvement from different department heads and others. I think we had council might have been involved. I can't remember what we did, but we went far and wide. This is one of those level positions that you don't just look around the immediate area. You want to put a feeler out there and a lot of advertising in the broader area, statewide and beyond. And I don't remember how many applicants we got, Tom, but we had 4 really high quality applicants that we interviewed. Jen rose to the top, but the other 3 probably would have done, a decent job as well. They were definitely professionals in the field. Again, you want to hurry these along. I know I brought to the council recently the idea of, speeding up the process by not having to get finance committee approval, to refill positions. And, I understand their concerns with that. But we want to make sure that it's a thoughtful process. These are important positions. We don't want to just race out and find the first person we can. HR is a really important thing in particular, and we need the best qualified professional that we can get.
Well said. 200 plus employees here, has to do with PD, fire, all of them. So, and we also have a records specialist that was mentioned last night that is, I believe, retiring from PD.
Yeah, Chris Dargard has been here for a number of years. We want to thank her as well for her service to the city and to the police department. A very high quality employee. I don't see her a lot, but I hear really good things about what Chris does. But we have 3 record specialists, and these are the people who deal with the front counter, and they have duties related to incoming walk-ins, registrations, and those kind of things. They also collate reports. They enter traffic citations and all sorts of records into the system, and they monitor and they're able to retrieve those records for the officers and the police management. So you wouldn't believe the volume of activity that they get, the number of complaints, the number of reports that have to be done, and all the things, citations. It's a busy place if you've ever been down to the police department. So they need these people really a lot, and going very long without an individual is difficult. I don't have Chris's final date here, but I believe, her last date is on February 8th. So she'll be leaving in a couple of weeks. But we look forward to getting, again, some quality applicants and hopefully getting someone on board within a couple of months to fill that spot.
All right. We'll see where that goes. Hopefully it doesn't take too long, and they can be back to staff over at the PD.
That position may have a little bit of a shorter time as far as how long we take applicants, because we're not going as far and wide as we would for a department or division head. But again, we really pride ourselves on trying to make sure that we get good people. You want to have good hires. That really determines what your organization is.
And even current employees interested in a job like that can apply.
Yeah, we have lateral transfers or promotions and those kind of things. And we do have a lot of opportunities where it gets filled from internally too. But we certainly look for candidates internally and externally virtually all the time.
Okay, let's move off our consent agenda, which generally goes by pretty quick at council. Let's move into the items that are removed. We have a budget resolution, I believe that's coming out of contingency, I believe this year or last year. I'm not sure. You can kind of mention that. That's for a boiler. Yeah, and that issue came up during the meeting too, as far as whether or not it's 2021 or 2022 contingency, and I'll address that in a minute. But Jeff Malter is our building services coordinator. He is an outstanding professional. He deals with all the mechanical, HVAC, and electrical, and all the issues we have with our facilities as part of his job. Well, he's been reporting to Dan Kinect, our public works director, for a while, that one of the 2 boilers that services City Hall has been failing. Maybe failing is not the right word, but it's been repaired and re-repaired, and it really needs to be replaced. The building itself is only 18 years old. It was built in 2004. The boilers typically last about 20 years, but if you do the math, this is coming upon its 20-year anniversary pretty soon, and apparently maybe it wasn't maintained to the degree it could have been earlier in its life. So Dan Kinect brought this forward late last year, I think it was in November, saying, could we target money from this year to make this purchase in 2022? We looked at contingency. We bookmarked it. We included it in a resolution with the council approval, I think in December, Tom, to carry $23,500 forward to make this purchase and installation in 2022. So what came up with the meeting is, wait a minute, is this 2021 contingency or 2022 contingency? And if it's 2022, where do we stand? We did that thing at the end of last year's budget process where we put $400,000 more in contingency, all connected with qualifying for future, state programs. And they wanted to know where we stand. Well, we haven't tapped into contingency yet for 2022, and we're not doing it with this purchase either, because the money was carried over from 2021. So it's already been accounted for in the 2021 budget. So we'd be spending $23,500 to make this replacement, and we're transferring monies to the proper account for that. Hopefully we'll get that made in the next, I don't know, 4, 6, 8 weeks. I don't know how long it takes to get that and install it, but Jeff and Dan will work together and we'll get that upgrade made. Okay. Well, the new City Hall has really been economical. I bet if you thought back to when you were in the other building. Yes, it was older. Those costs were quite high. So the city's still doing well by that move.
Yeah, the heating and everything that had to do with that facility. I mean, it was way bigger than we needed. Now, we did rent out a lot of the area for retail, commercial, office, use, and so we got revenue from that. But the city only occupied a third of that space, and so we're in a much smaller building here now, the former Forward Bank building. It works really well for us, as you said. You're not in the same building right now, and Justin Casperson and Park and Rec, they got moved to the Second Street Community Center, but it works really well for us, and the systems are a lot newer. So I mean, having to talk about replacing a boiler maybe caught our council, our finance committee, a little bit off guard. Really, we've only been in the building for 3 years, but I mean, really, we inherited a pretty good roof, a pretty good HVAC system, and all those kind of things, which was also to our benefit. But the space utilization here is really good for us. It's not way more than we needed like it was in the old building.
Yeah, I just wanted to make that point. I think no matter what, it was a good plan to move across the street where you are. Right?
Absolutely.
All right, let's move into, this is important, a special assessment. This was chatted about right at Public Works meeting on Monday, and Tom Turchi, our city engineer, is going to talk. I'll have you elaborate on that, please.
Yeah, there are two changes to section 13 of the municipal code being proposed here, Tom. The first one deals with the width of streets, and they've done some looking at the typical streets and the amount of traffic on some of these streets. And they've kind of come to the conclusion, I mean the engineering staff and the public works director, that maybe the pavement doesn't have to be quite as wide as it is in some cases. And I'm reading right from the current code. It says the maximum pavement construction is with curbs is 32 feet wide and 3 inches thick with 2 layers. And they kind of felt maybe there was a better alternative. So they're proposing reducing that maximum width to 28 feet, cutting it back by 4 feet, and also adding some crushed aggregate to kind of beef up the street construction, as I understand it. But that's, they're reacting to what they see. They're reacting to the information they have from surveying the traffic amounts, the traffic flow on some of those residential streets, and it sounds like it makes sense. The board kind of agreed as well, the Board of Public Works. The other piece is one that we talked about with staff here lately. Right now, the property owners pay 100% of new sidewalk construction in their neighborhood. So if you own a property and there's not sidewalk, it's put in, you pay 100%. It's assessed to you at 100% for the amount of feet that you own along the roadway. Well, it's kind of thought that, not only is that kind of a hard thing for, property owners to take, but everybody's using the sidewalk. I mean, people are walking through the neighborhood, they're walking through, all over. So it's being used by just more than you. And the thought was maybe we ought to reduce that to give homeowners a little bit of a break. So for new sidewalk installations, new construction we're talking about, that would be reduced from 100% of the cost being assessed to the abutting property owner for their footage, dropping that to 50%. And again, kind of reducing the burden. Now, one of the things we're trying to do is encourage new home construction, new development, residential projects to take off. This is something that might be helpful to people too when they're looking at buying and building and ultimately perhaps being assessed for sidewalk improvements.
Okay, well, we'll hear from Tom on that, and I believe it could, the rules could be suspended, but it could be come to our February 8th meeting.
Yeah, typically, this is on the agenda all the time. The rules can be suspended and they can vote on it at the first reading. That's pretty rare. The only times we normally see that is when there's a real time-sensitive issue involved. I don't think there really is a timely issue here. I think it'll be just fine, and most likely the second reading and approval will happen at the February 8th meeting.
All right. Next agenda item came up before Christmas, somewhere around Thanksgiving time, if I remember right. Welcoming community. We are a welcoming community, for sure. There's no doubt about that. But this is about something about a joint statement working with like Mackey, the university. Is that right? Yeah, Mackey and UW Stevens Point here in town, the Marshfield campus have been kind of the drivers, but there's others who've been supportive. I know there's business community people directly who I've talked to. The clinic is very supportive of this initiative as well, Tom.
And, the first time it was presented, I was actually out of town. I was presenting by Zoom while I was on vacation. And maybe I didn't think about the questions that council might have. I thought, well, why wouldn't we want to approve a statement that says we're welcoming, to all people, diversity, and we want everyone to know that we'd love to have them come here, live, work, and play in our community. But the council raised some questions that night, and they were asking things like, well, how would the statement be used? And, do we need this? I mean, do we have problems? Is there some reason why we have to adopt a statement? Are we having, bad incidents happening now and we're really not? What about, does this bind us to future actions? What if someone comes forward and says, well, you adopted that welcoming statement, now you need to do this for us. You need to spend money on this project or whatever. So we thought it would be best, if the council did, to have the real drivers of this initiative be there to present and explain why they really want to do this. And I've talked at some length with Michelle Bornke from the college and Scott Larson, the executive director of Mackey, the Chamber of Commerce and Industry. What they're really trying to do is remove barriers. Their hope is that if you're coming from Chicago or are looking at coming from Chicago or Minneapolis or somewhere else, and you're thinking, well, central Wisconsin, will I feel comfortable if I'm perhaps from a minority population or whatever the case might be? Will I be received well into the community? And the answer, with everything I've seen in the 11 years I've been here, is yes, yes, and yes. This is a very welcoming community, but what they want to do is try and get this out there and use it on their publications to tell people that you will be welcome here. We welcome all people here, and we want to have you be part of us and be involved in what we do. So those two will present. They'll answer questions from the council, and if the council feels that those issues and ideas have been satisfied, they understand why this is moving forward, they feel like it's good, then they'll be able to make motion to approve it that night.
All right, sounds good. All right, in between all this racket in here, I had to say that here.
Yeah.
Lost my train of thought. Council manager, form of government. That was talked about midsummer last year. I believe Wisconsin municipalities came up and mentioned that. I see it back on the agenda. What's that about?
Yeah, when we had the vacancy in the mayor role, the council brought up the idea, why don't we get, they decided to go with the council president for a year and not replace the mayor. And Nick Paschal's done a wonderful job in that council president role, Tom. But they did ask, let's get the League of Wisconsin Municipalities, the people to whom we pay dues, let's have them come and explain what are the different forms of government. Maybe this is an opportunity to say, well, why do we do the weak administrator or the weak mayor administrator form? Again, that's not that the person is weak, that's that the formal authority is weak. Maybe we ought to look at the strong mayor, where the mayor is basically the full-time CEO. What about the council manager form? What about the commission form, which is not used in Wisconsin at this point, but it's out there. And so they heard a good presentation from the staff members from the league. I believe Kurt Watinsky and Jerry DeShane were here, the top two people in that organization. And then it kind of sat and nobody brought it up. Well, now Adam Fisher, at the end of the last council meeting under items for future agendas, said, why don't we look at that? I think the council manager form has some merit. There's communities that use it. I think about, 10 or more. Maybe it would be right for us. So he has asked for that to be brought forward. He asked me to bring a little bit of information about how that works. How does council manager differ from the other forms? And then what would it take if the council wanted to do this? Well, do they have to have a referendum? Do they have to approve a special ordinance? Do they have to involve the public? What's the procedure that's required to change your form of government? So what I'll be presenting on Tuesday night are the answers to those questions. I'll kind of clarify the difference between council manager form and other forms of government in Wisconsin. A little bit kind of going over what was said before back in July, but kind of maybe reframing it a little bit. And then I'll talk about what is required if they want to go that route. And the answer is it's a charter ordinance. And a referendum is not required, but a member of the public could circulate a petition to require a referendum if they wanted to, if that's the direction the city is going. And the reason for that is because changing forms of government is a significant event. We adopt policies all the time, Tom, and we undo them maybe 2 weeks later if we find that they're not working. I'm making that up, but I mean, it's all within our control. Changing forms of government is something you don't see very often in cities and villages across Wisconsin. So could it have merit? Absolutely. Do you want to do it without a lot of thought and discussion? No, you want to be very measured and very thoughtful in looking at a topic like that. And I think that's what Adam Fisher wants to do. He wants to see if there's merit to it, to explore deeper whether or not we want to go down the council manager road.
All right, I'm not sure if you can answer this, Steve. Our history, has Marshfield always been this kind of form of government, our city administrator style, or is that relatively new or not? Not sure.
Well, good question. And our city clerk, Deb Hall, looked this up and found that we actually adopted the city administrator form of government back in the late 80s, 1988. So it's been, a little over 3 decades. We've always had the weak mayor form of government, as I understand it. Now you say, what's a strong mayor? That would be Wausau, Stevens Point, or Wisconsin Rapids, where the mayor, when they're elected, they are the day-to-day person overseeing City Hall. There is no administrator or manager. They are the person who's the 40-hour-a-week responsibility individual. We never had that, I don't think, here in Marshfield. We had the system what we have now, where the mayor runs the meetings, he signs the documents, he performs official functions at various meetings and activities, and then the council are the ones that vote. But until 1988, we didn't have an administrator, and that was when they decided it would be good to have a professional administrator running things on a day-to-day basis, kind of like the chief administrative officer at the direction of the council. Going to a manager would be a step up from that. For that position, it would be more authority to the manager. Not as much as you might think, but hiring and firing of department heads. A lot of cities allow more flexibility in spending limits to managers as opposed to administrators. There's some other minor things too, but that's kind of where those differences sit.
All right, not to throw my opinion in here, but today's world is tough, and you've seen it with clerks, finance, treasurers. Those have now become from elected to I believe like appointed, just because of the technical work that's involved, and same with a city administrator, same with a manager. Nothing against a mayor, but it really does take a lot of experience. City administrators like yourself probably have a degree in this area, public administration or something similar. So you got to think about all those avenues. I just wanted to bring that up.
Yeah, I really even have a master's degree in public administration. And that's really good. That's really helpful. The focus on more professional management is a good thing. I think what you have to decide if you're looking at administrator versus manager is, what's best for the operation. Definitely the council needs to retain control, and they do. They still retain great control. They delegate a little bit more to a manager than an administrator, but they certainly have the authority to hire and fire the manager. That person is an at-will employee at the council's wishes. So it's not a right answer or a wrong answer. I think cities that don't have an administrator, especially if they're of any size, I think are missing out. I really do, because the world is complicated now. And if you have a part-time council and a part-time mayor, I think it's really beneficial to have someone there 40+ hours a week, making sure things are happening that they want done and that the laws and rules require us to do, leading the daily charge. But the differences between administrator and manager are a little bit more subtle. And I just want to present what state law talks about, how these things play out in real life, and then let the council decide if they think that more exploration is warranted.
Okay. We'll hear from you and possibly our alderman on that. Is that, I believe so?
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. Just for the record, I'm sorry to interrupt. Just for the record, I need to make it clear. Steve Barg, city administrator, is not advocating in this process. I didn't bring it up. I'm not pushing it. I'm not trying to aspire to a different form of government where I'd be a city manager instead of a city administrator. Nothing like that whatsoever. I like the position I have. I think it's good when I think we work really well together between the council and me. It's just a matter of whether the council believes that there's benefit to exploring one of the other options that state law allows, and that's entirely completely up to them.
All right. Thank you for that information, Steve. I appreciate it. It looks like we come to the end of our agenda, as well as the end of this program, unless you have something else.
I really don't. We have a little bit more on the docket this time than we did 2 weeks ago, and I think you'll see more of that as we get into 2022. Yeah, I mean, those are the issues we have right now. We don't have any closed session this time, but there'll be a lot more coming up in February, Tom.
All right. Like I always say, come in person, come early this time, but you don't have to. 5 o'clock is the other meeting. 6 o'clock is our regular meeting. I believe there's only public comment. I don't have the agenda for the first meeting. Maybe there is, I'm not sure.
No, there's only public comment on the agenda for the second meeting at 6 o'clock. And that's because we probably wouldn't normally do that twice. And that's the meeting when the greater, broader public business takes place.
All right, like you say, Steve, we welcome anybody to come up during that time, as Nick will allow that time, 5 minutes for someone to come up and speak, and it doesn't have to be on the agenda. As always, Steve, I appreciate you taking your time, 45 minutes of your time to do a council preview for the citizens of Marshfield, as well as aldermen or anyone else that wants to get, I call it a sneak peek in a way, but a little bit of information before that meeting starts. So we'll be back early February.
Yep.
And do this all over again. And you're already working on that agenda with department heads. So thanks again for doing this via Zoom, and hopefully everything goes well for you so you can get back here in person.
Thanks, Tom. Have a great one.
Yeah. All right. Thanks, everyone, for watching our council preview program.